I'm Ryan. I'm a science teacher.
I'm Cheryl, and I slept through science.
Each episode will tackle a science question you may have learned in school, but can't quite remember or fully explain.
And I'll take the risk of asking the dumb questions so that we can all understand the science we slept through.
The bell has rung. Let's get started. Welcome to Lesson 18. We are going to start a new unit today, Cheryl. We are going to start a unit about biology.
I'm so excited.
Are you?
Yes, I really am.
Good. Biology is what I would call my first love science.
That's the cutest thing I've ever heard in my life.
The first time that I was consciously aware that I liked science was my 7th grade life science class, which is basically the middle school version of biology. And so there were things that I learned that year that I still remember today. And I just remember being so interested and so fascinated by all the things I learned in that class.
Cute. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. Yay.
It was very cool. I did not sleep through that class. To get us started, I'd like to talk a little bit just about what biology is first. Biology is one of the ologies.
Sure is.
It is.
Yep.
Ology, you probably know this, Cheryl. Do you know what ology means?
The study of?
Means study of,
Woo!
right?
I
And
just passed the pop quiz, Ryan.
you did. Look at that. See?
Every time you ask me a question, it's a pop
It's a pop quiz. And the bio, I'm guessing you know what bio means.
Living thing?
Yeah, life.
Okay.
Yeah. So biology is literally the study of life or the study of living things. So that's what biology is. It's incredibly broad. There are lots of things that fall under the umbrella of biology. And I'm really excited to talk about and answer a whole bunch of biology questions.
So fun.
So what is your first biology question for our unit, Cheryl?
Okay. So something that I do enjoy. So we all know just because of this podcast, I am recently enjoying science, but for years, something I have very much enjoyed are icebreaker questions.
Oh gosh.
I promise this is related and we're going to get there eventually.
I believe it is. I just do not enjoy icebreaker questions.
Oh my goodness. I love a question for the group. I love to hear everybody's answers. I love to make those questions creative. I hate when the question is something like, what's a fun fact about yourself? Because either just says like their hometown or like they just like repeat whatever the last person said, but whatever it is for themselves. One of the ones I really enjoy though is, what animal are you most like? And it's a different question than saying, which animal's life do you wish you could have? Because then we'd all be a dog. Because like you still get to live in a house and someone feeds you. Okay, fine. But either way, it's a pet, right? It's like a pet who has this like cushy life.
Yeah.
I guess to sleep all day, but also you're like indoors and no predators. So yeah, dog, cat, some sort of like domesticated animal.
Yeah.
That's not that question. The question I like is like, what animal are you most like? So like thinking about like characteristics of an animal and how it's like you. And my favorite answer to this question is to say that I am a platypus.
Okay.
Because you can't really classify a platypus as any one thing. It's like it lives in the water, but it's not like a fish. And then it's like it has fur, but it's not really a mammal. And that's how I feel about myself. And maybe that's thinking too highly of myself. But my interest and my skill sets kind of feel all over the board. I frequently surprise people when they're like, wait, you also like crochet or play the guitar. Just these different things that like kind of surprise people sometimes. And so I feel like maybe it's a little hard to classify me too and just say like, this is what Cheryl does and that's it. And so I can relate to the platypus because it's hard to classify me. Or maybe I'm way more basic than I think I am, but I like to think of myself as a platypus.
Okay.
But then it got me thinking, as we were talking about starting biology, why is it that you can't really classify a platypus, or can you after all? Like, does a
Mm,
platypus actually fit in a box and we can clearly determine what, I don't know, species it is? I don't even remember. What I know there's the levels, but I don't
mhm.
remember at what level it is. But I know it's hard to classify a platypus. So can we talk about that today?
Yes, that
Great.
is a great question. And because of the topic, I have a special surprise for you at some point during our lesson today.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
I knew you would like a special surprise.
I do.
But we will start with our pre-assessment to figure out what you already know. And you've already talked about a few of those things, but talk about what you know about both a platypus, but also classification and what you know about those sorts of things.
Yeah, so what I know about classifications is that it's like groupings of living things. And then
Okay.
even specifically, you can look at animals and
Mhm.
classify animals. And I know that there's different levels of grouping. So there's, and I don't remember all the names. I know species is one of the levels. I know like there's dog breeds. Is that one of the very like fine-tuned levels, or do we stop with dog? Or like do
Mm,
breeds count as like a further way of classifying? I'm going to say yes. I think so. But it feels similar to saying like the country you live in, and then there's the region
mm.
you live in, and then the state, and then the county, and then the city. You know, like it feels very similar to that, where you can really like whittle down what different living things are. Usually by asking questions. You could say like, can it breathe underwater, slash, or like, does it have lungs? Does it have fur? Does it lay eggs, or does it give live births? Things like that that you could use to determine where it fits in its classification. Um, Humans would even, be under that. Um, I'm saying living things because I think it's broader than animals. I
Okay.
think, but then is it trees or like germs, or like there's the other things that I think we can classify too that are living. Platypuses, I think I might have already listed. I think they have eggs, but then they have fur, but then they're like a water creature. There's a lot going on with them.
Any other characteristics about a platypus that you know?
I think they might have like teeth on their, they have a bill,
Okay.
but then I think, or do ducks just have teeth? I feel like maybe there's teeth involved on the bill. I could be wrong. Um, those are the main things I remember about a platypus.
Okay. That's a good list to get us started.
Yay.
Let's start with your analogy that you used that I thought was really, really good
Okay.
as far as where you're located on the earth.
Okay, that sounds great.
That was a wonderful analogy, Cheryl.
Yay. I thought you were going to talk about the analogy of my amazing and super unique personality, but
We'll
whatever.
get there. We got to build to that. But you talked about how you could talk about like I don't think you said continent, but you could do a continent and then a country and then a region, depending on what the country is. It could be a state or some other province or some other grouping of areas, and then a city and maybe a neighborhood and then a house. You could break those things down
Yeah.
and they nest within each other.
Yes.
And that is a great analogy for classifying things, living things
Nice.
in biology. We have a big fancy word for the system of classifying, though. Are you ready?
Yes.
Do you have any ideas what it is?
I've probably heard it,
You
but
probably have.
I am having a very hard time remembering it. And then when you say it, I'm going to go, "Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Taxonomy.
Oh, yeah."
So yes, you've heard that word before.
Mhm.
And it just has it's that very organized way of categorizing and classifying things. And believe it or not, this is also one of those things that I still remember from 7th grade.
Really?
We had to memorize the order of all of those things. And I have no idea why it stuck in my brain, but it did. And I could kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species.
Oh, yeah.
Does that sound vaguely
Yeah.
familiar?
Oh, no, totally. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, since the early 90s, mid 90s, when I was in 7th grade and learning this, we've learned a whole lot more about just, everything, but biology, especially with the advances in genetic technology. And so we've been able to sort of reclassify and regroup some things. So some of the things that I learned in 7th grade, the categories have shifted a little.
That makes a lot of sense, and also it's one of those things that it for some reason in my mind feels like it's, like, frozen in time. Like, we already figured this out, and
Yes.
there it is on the wall in the poster with the little lines and the
Uh-huh.
yeah, mhm.
And most of it's the same. Those
Okay.
same things, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species, those are the same. What happened was they added one more above it called domain. So there's
Ooh.
an even bigger category. But for the purposes of what we're looking at, we can, for the most part, ignore domain. There's basically, you can be, it has to do with the type of cell you are, a eukaryotic cell or a prokaryotic cell. And then in the prokaryotic cells, you can either be a bacterium, I guess, or an archaea or an archaea, or depending on how you want to pronounce it. But that's a whole other thing for a whole nother time. We're just going to focus on eukaryotic cells, which is all the things that you're thinking of.
Okay, great. I was really hoping the domains were if we are Earthlings or Martians, because that would be some development maybe that's happened over time, but
Not
I guess
yet.
not.
But if we were to discover life outside of Earth, we would need to rethink, how do we want to use our
Yeah.
classification system?
Uh-huh.
We would definitely have to do that. It'd be very exciting.
Yeah.
Scientists would love it. It would be great. With that system, the kingdoms, and this gets to one of the questions you were asking. You were talking about animals, but you said it probably wasn't just animals, but
Yes.
then you were not sure if plants were included or not, or whatever. And all of that is definitely contained. Kingdoms being, for what we're thinking of, the largest category.
Mhm.
Animalia, or animals, is one of those kingdoms.
Oh, yeah, the animal kingdom.
The animal kingdom.
That's like a term.
It
Yeah.
is a term. It definitely is. And plants, or
Okay.
plantae, that's a kingdom. Fungi, so like fungus,
Mhm.
that's a kingdom. And then one more that you might have heard of before, but might not be as familiar. It's protista, or protists.
Oh.
Those are single-celled organisms that a lot of them are like plankton in the ocean and things like that. So things that you wouldn't necessarily encounter all the time, although some of them can be infectious. So that's its own sort of kingdom.
Interesting. So I remember learning this now, and I remember feeling like it was weird or maybe even unfair that animals only get one kingdom, but I feel like fungi should be under plants. Like, it feels like that's one too. So why do they get their separate
So
ones?
that's a great question. What determines whether something is its own kingdom or not has to do with, and this is another something that you mentioned, their characteristics. You talked about asking questions.
Mhm.
Does it live on the land? Does it live in the water? Things like that. And it's not necessarily always have to be in the form of a question, but it is about shared characteristics. And the bigger the level of the taxonomy, so the higher up, like kingdom being a really high one, the broader those characteristics are. A really simple example is the characteristics of cells. Animal cells in general are squishy.
Round.
Yes, exactly. Whereas
And plant ones are rectangles or
and
like
yes,
squared.
and it's not so much the shape,
Oh,
but
okay.
plants have what's called a cell wall. They have something that helps them be rigid.
Oh.
And that's why plants, without skeletons or anything like that, that's why leaves can keep a shape and stay flat and do all of those things, is because at the cellular level, they have an extra structure that as animals we don't have.
Interesting. Okay.
So that's one example that can
Yeah.
separate those things out. Fungi, they are structured very differently than plants are. They do have cell walls, so they're definitely not animals, but they're made out of a completely different substance than plant cell walls. So plant cell walls are made out of cellulose. You've probably heard of cellulose before. Whereas fungal cell walls are made out of chitin, which is the same thing that insect skeletons are made out of.
Oh,
So it's a
interesting.
completely different system. Also,
Wow.
the way fungi communicate and their life cycles are very different from plants. They have these things called hyphae that are and mycelium and all of these things that run and interconnect and literally communicate in very different ways than plants do. So they really are a very separate thing when you study them. They look kind of like plants to us, kind of, but they're really not. Like, they don't have roots, for example. They don't have, they don't have branches, or they're not woody in any sort of way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they're their own sort of category. Let me give an example of how the taxonomy would work from start to bottom, from top to bottom, start to finish. There's an expression in there somewhere for humans.
Okay.
Because we're humans.
Yes.
So we are in the animal kingdom. Our phylum is Chordata, which is chordates. That has to do, it's not quite the same, but it has to do with the way our brains are structured and having to do with backbones, not the actual bones. It's some of the stuff that's in the structure inside, but
interesting.
Chordates. The class is Mammalia. We are mammals. So that's where that comes from.
Okay.
Our class, I just said that. Our order is primates.
Okay.
You've heard of that term before.
Yes.
Our family is homonym. Oh gosh, it's hard to say. Homonymdi. We're homonyms. Trying to say it a lot. We're homonyms. I don't know if you've heard of that term before.
I've heard of homophones.
It's similar. Yeah. And then our genus, well, it's similar. But anyway, don't worry about it, is Homo, which you've heard of.
Yes.
And then our species is Homo sapien.
Okay. And species is how specific it gets?
Species are
specific.
Yes. However, you also talked about like dog breeds, for example.
Yeah.
All dog breeds are the same species.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
But you can have subspecies and other ways of grouping within a species. Okay. But biologically speaking, they're all considered the same species.
Are there other Homo sapiens other than humans?
There are no other Homo sapiens because that is our specific species. So it's all one. Okay. But there have in the past been other Homo genus. Okay. So at the level above us. Okay. So some of those you might have heard of: Homo habilis, Homo erectus, Homo australis, a lot of those other humanoid. I don't know if that's not a biology term in the sense, but things that are very similar to us, related to us, are cousins. Oftentimes they're referred to as. Okay. But not humans, not specifically. Species. Yeah. Because different species than what we are. Okay. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. That's the whole thing as far as laying the groundwork for taxonomy. Now that we have that kind of foundation, now let's apply that to platypuses. Okay. Platypuses do actually have a category, and they do fit within taxonomy.
Oh, yay. I'm so happy for them.
Yes. They don't fit what we normally think of. And I was reading that when they first discovered the platypuses in Australia, and I think they sent it back to England, I think, but not a carcass, but that's not the right word, but like a dead animal, but it was like the skin, I think. A lot of the scientists who originally saw it thought it was a hoax, because they thought someone had, taken a duck bill and sewed it on.
Like a jackalope.
Yeah. Exactly. Wow. They thought it was a hoax. They didn't believe it was real because it doesn't fit those categories as clearly and as cleanly as we typically think about.
Wow.
Yeah. but they are mammals.
Okay.
And there are several things that define a mammal, but the main one is that they feed their young, the mothers feed their young with milk.
Okay.
That's where the word mammal comes from, the mammary glands.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's
Cool.
mammal, mammary. It's the same root word, those mammary glands that make milk. And platypuses do that.
Okay.
They are in a not completely unique, but a very interesting category. It's at the order level called monotremes. And those are mammals that lay eggs. You mentioned that they lay eggs. Yes. Most mammals do not lay eggs, but there's
other ones.
But there are. Have you heard of the echidna?
Yes.
Echidnas also lay eggs.
Wow.
I think there's 4 or 5 species of echidna that are also monotremes and also lay eggs, but they count as mammals.
Cool.
And there's a few other mammal characteristics like having fur or hair. That's a mammal thing. And then also, this one's kind of weird, having 3 bones inside the ear. That's a mammal
specific?
thing. Mm-hmm.
Wow. How about being warm-blooded?
Warm-blooded, first of all, is not really the scientific term. There's a little bit more to it, but that's at a higher level of taxonomy. I don't know which one off the top of my head, but it's at a higher level. Okay. So platypuses do actually have a category and they do fit, even though they've got some really, really weird things that make them very different than normal.
Yeah.
Are you ready for your surprise?
Yes.
Or do you want to wait till later?
Did you bring me a platypus?
Not quite.
Oh, okay. I'm still excited. Okay.
I have been to Australia.
Yeah.
Which is where platypuses are from.
Yeah.
And when I was there, I went to the Sydney Aquarium and they had platypuses.
They did?
And I took a video of one swimming.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
I think you're going to like it. I think you're going to like it. For those of you who are just listening to the audio of our podcast, we'll see if maybe Cheryl can post the video to our social media, and definitely you'll be able to see it if you catch us on YouTube. You'll be able to see it there. You have to realize, Cheryl, that this is from 2012. So that's 10 years ago.
I'm not going to judge you on your old camera.
The camera technology has definitely advanced, but here you go. You ready?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Oh, look at its tail. Oh my gosh. It's so cute.
It really is cute.
They look so fake.
They do.
They look, you know what? It's that they look like a type of Pokemon.
I would believe that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would see that.
A little bit of like a mix and match situation.
Yeah.
They're so cute. Thank you for sharing that with me.
You're welcome. I thought you might like it. And with that, it's time for your quiz.
Oh, but I already did one today. So
you did the pop quiz. This is the planned quiz.
Oh, yeah, because I did know about this.
Nice try, though.
Thank you. Yeah, I thought it was a good shot to take.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt. One little caveat as we get into this. You might not get all of the parts for all of the questions, and that's okay. I'm right. Okay. The questions, I know there was a lot of information. It went very fast. Just share the parts that you remember.
Okay. That sounds great.
So the first question is, what are the different levels of taxonomy that you can remember?
Phylum, genus, something with a G. I'm not going in order. Family, species. There's 6. There's 6 of them.
7.
Class. Is class 1? Okay, so then I'm still missing 1. I'm going to go with those 6, though.
That's great. I'm very impressed. Order was the one that you missed.
Order. Okay.
Yep. And the order is kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species.
Got it. Okay.
And there's a whole bunch of mnemonics to remember them. I never used any of them, but there's like king, someone, something. I don't know.
Wow, that was, yeah, it's very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Yeah. Question 2. What are the kingdoms?
Animalias. Plantuses.
Okay.
Fungi. I would say a fungi, but you said fungi. And then secret option number 4, weird single cell organisms that we're not going to talk about today.
Yeah, that's great. And they're called the protists. But again,
okay,
that's probably one that you haven't heard of before. So but you remembered what they were, what was true about them.
Yeah.
Awesome. See, you're doing great.
Yay.
Question 3. Where do platypuses fit in taxonomy? And not like their whole thing, but just where's a place that they fit and why?
They're mammals because they give their babies milk. And they are the type of mammals that also lay eggs. Yeah.
Nice. Called monotremes.
Monotremes.
Again, I wouldn't think that you would necessarily remember that, but yeah, great. All right. Last question. This is a really important one. I do not want you to get it wrong.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
What makes platypuses cute? I'm serious. What makes them cute, Cheryl? Come on now.
They're little flippers and their little feet and their little bills, but they're furry, but the bills are blue, and then they swim and they go dee 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 dee.
Oh my gosh, that was the best. A+ for that answer right there.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. So that's our introduction to our biology unit.
I love it.
Hopefully that gives us a good context for things that are yet to come. But it's all the time that we have for today's lesson. So why don't you pack up your stuff and get ready for my closing remarks. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at I Slept Through Science or on Twitter at Slept Science.
If you have dumb science questions like I do, please send them to us. You can email us at isleptthroughscience@gmail.com, or you can even send us a voice memo and we'll play it on the podcast.
Please rate and review our podcast to tell other people what you think about it, subscribe to make sure you don't miss an episode, and share about our podcast on social media.
Thank you to Beth Reed Miller for the artwork. You can check out more of Beth's artwork at Beth Is Something. Okay, great. Thanks. Bye.
The bell doesn't dismiss you. I dismiss you.